The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Good evening and welcome to Illuminating the Paranormal, opening your mind to the possibility. I hope this finds everyone doing well. I know for some of you, your states are just starting to open up and things are opening back up for everyone, but not everything. I know some of us are still stuck back here at home. I am one of those people that it's just not safe yet for me to be out there, so I'm sticking it out and staying home and washing my hands a lot. So getting the groceries delivered and just not visiting friends, which is hard. I think truthfully for me, that is the hardest thing, is not being able to see my friends and go out and be with people or go to some of the great different paracons that I usually go to. I mean, it's usually mid-March to mid-April until mid-November. And right now, my first one is not until September. In fact, I just had one for this fall that just canceled yesterday. And I'm very disappointed because it was going to be a big one. So it's all right. Better safe than sorry. And we'll try it again next year. Well, it has definitely been a good couple of days here in the Midwest with a little bit warmer weather. And of course, we're right back to crappy weather with rain about to start any second, and it's chilly. But looks like once we get past this week, slowly things are going to start to warm up. I may actually get that garden going, and things are starting to pop in my greenhouse, so I'm excited. All right, everyone. I have with me tonight someone who I have been friends with for, maybe 5-6 years now. We've seen each other and actually met out there on the circuit and doing the different paranormal conferences that are out there. And this person is someone a lot of you actually have heard of before. Tonight I have with me James Annitto. James is a demonologist and a deacon through the Old Catholic Church. James is also a paranormal investigator, researcher, and member of the Sanctuary Paranormal and former founder-owner of the Dominion Ministry. He actually got started and was very interested in ghost hunting, but had his first experience when his aunt showed him a ghostly figure peeking out of a window during one of their vacations. And I know, James, you have been out there for quite some time, and you have done some incredible work. Thank you so very much for being my guest tonight.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. I'm glad you're safe, and hopefully all listeners that are listening right now, of course, are safe as well. You know, this has been hard times on us. Some of us haven't lived through something like this before to this capacity. So it's difficult, but thank you for having me on. It's definitely good to be against the norm, you know?
Yeah. Exactly. It seems like everything from March on is all new and different. Discovering new things every day.
No, definitely.
I'm discovering what it's going to be like when my husband retires and he's home every single day. He might live through it. I don't know. Well, I'm still trying to decide yet. We'll see. But how are you doing? I know you have been able to be out there, and you are still working because you have a very vital job that you are out there doing. So I thank you for being out there and being on the front lines and taking care of stuff for people. But in your other time, you are not actually on your job. You are a demonologist. How did you get started in doing that after being in ghost hunting?
Well, I do work during the day. I work an essential job, and for the people, I am a demonologist. But technically, that is applicable study that I apply study into application. But I truthfully, if I'm not classified as a foreman during my day job, I would more so classify as a deacon with the United States Old Catholic Church. So a demonologist is a title, but I'm a deacon. So that's what I would prefer to go by. But yeah, no, I got involved with demonology because of ghost hunting, but also because of my interest in theology since a young kid. Idea of God, the study of God. But, of course, getting involved in the paranormal, specifically ghost hunting in the general realm of things, and really was to get involved because if I could determine what spirits are, of course, as a kid and as a young adult, you think you can come up with these answers, and sometimes you learn that you cannot. You can come up with your opinion and ideas, but you'll never be able to say this is what it is unless you came up with some holy grail that was, approved by the scientific field. There'd be so many things that you'd have to go through before it was determined to be this is what it is. But so I got into the paranormal, the ghost hunting aspect of it, because I figured if I could figure out what spirits are, maybe I could come up with a better conclusion if God did exist. And this is when I was more in a questionable phase. And of course, within that search, there's always been the concept of good and evil. Every major religion has it. So I always wondered about, of course, angels and demons, and of course, that other named same characteristic entities of other religions. And so the concept of evil was very important to me. Hamartology, which is the study of sin, demonology, which is the study of demons, was all interesting to me. So I started working with a man named Carl Johnson 10 years ago, I believe it was now, maybe 9 years ago. And I was running my own group at that point in time, and I was asked to be the tech manager for his group, which is a great honor, because if people don't know who Carl Johnson is that is listening, Carl Johnson started investigating 46 years ago. He was the very first investigator in the Conjuring House, which is, of course, now famous. So, this man, it was also in the first 2 seasons of Ghost Hunters, not the pump him up, but the man knows his stuff. His brother Keith Johnson knows his stuff, and I respect them. I respected them, and I knew about them because of my delvings of Hans Holzer and Harry Price and Ed and Lorraine Warren. And of course, if you've read about Ed and Lorraine Warren, you've heard about the Johnson brothers.
Yes.
So it was just a very big opportunity for me to become tech manager of his group, and that's really what started me down that path of demonology. But I've always been interested in it, but working with him was the catalyst of it.
Okay, all right. I know for myself, being out there for quite some time and being a paranormal investigator, well, frankly, you occasionally, after 16 years, there have been 1 or 2 times where pretty sure it was a little bit more than just, a really pissed off, nasty ghost. And, there are a lot of people who are out there and say, there's no such thing as demons. That tells me that person has never come up against something that was demon-like. They haven't, because there's no way they can say that and have come up against something like that.
Definitely, to me, it's very rare. I of course learned this and adapted. Of course, if you talk to me 5, 6, maybe a few years ago, maybe my opinions might be different. But of course, the more that you're involved in something, the more research you put into something, you start deciphering things. And of course, there's no fact to this. There isn't. And the only thing that's fact is that there's things that exist that we don't understand, and it could be supernatural, or it could be something that we will eventually figure out that is medical, or something that involves the scientific field that could be proven. But until that point, it's speculative. And, of course, you experience things that follow along the characteristics that very smart people have come forth and have dealt with beforehand, such as exorcists, ministers, and, other peoples of faith. The concept of evil has been around since almost human civilization was created. So, if not the beginning of it. And so this shows you something and spirits have been talked about for many, many years, even before Christianity, Judaism, Islamic, before Hinduism, and Hinduism is very old. So, there's been talk about spirit. So it's very interesting. But yeah, I think they're very rare. I've ever dealt with anywhere from 5 to 7 cases in the past 15 years of doing this. So that just shows you the rarity of these things. Of course, other people might characterize them differently, but because I am a deacon with the Catholic Church, and there's steps, the deacon of the United States Old Catholic Church. Of course, when we handle cases, there are documentation things. They have to see a psychologist if they're claiming possession, or anything dealing with themselves if they're depressed. They have to see a medical professional. Some people don't do that, and some people claim it to be demonic, and it's not. But that's going to happen. There's doctors in the medical field that misdiagnose, and there's people that do wrong things and negligent things in any different kind of field or trade. So it's to be expected. But myself, who I believe is educated, and I do believe has a background that could be applied to this. I do believe it exists, but I do believe that there's precautions you have to take, because you're dealing with people, and dealing with people is dangerous, especially now in this time and place. Something wrong can happen, and you can put you and your family at detriment, not just in a supernatural standpoint, but also in a financial standpoint when you're getting sued because something wrong happened.
Right. So I do have a question in the chat room, James, and it is, someone is asking, why do you think everyone automatically assumes that when you hear growls or you hear 3 knocks that it has to be a demon and not just a spirit with stomach gas or something else, So why do you think people automatically jump? Now, I gave that person my answer. Let me hear yours.
Say that again, please. Sorry.
Why do you think everyone automatically assumes that when they hear growls or knocking that it has to be a demon right away and not just a spirit? Well,
because that is the easiest conclusion to jump to. A lot of us of the Christian faith, we hear it all the time, are misunderstood, believe that everything that, and there's people that, there are demonologists that claim this, and I respect their opinion. Carl Johnson's brother, Keith Johnson, who I highly respect, and his wife, Sandra Johnson, who I highly respect as well, he believes that everything is a demonic entity, so you should be careful. He doesn't even do EVP sessions anymore. He does record his sessions of cleansings and his deliverances. There's nothing wrong with that, but he does not attempt communication, because he has dealt with things that has played him, I guess. And I guess, I will say the same thing, that when you deal with the unknown, you have to take your precautions. And a lot of people think it's a roller coaster ride. You pay admission, and there's not going to be any repercussions. But when you deal with the unknown, it's something that you can't see, even though people claim they have abilities, and I respect that, and I do believe that there are abilities out there. But I think there's things that could be like that demonic entity that could be deceptive and can play regardless of how strong you believe you are in your abilities. These things are much older than we are in technical standpoint. If you look at the literature and the documentations of these things that far beyond go our culture. So I think they can be very deceptive. So when you deal with the unknown, it's dangerous. So I think a lot of people jump to that conclusion because with the scratches, there's a definitive way of knowing if it is demonic scratch or if it is a self-inflicted scratch or a human scratch, a human spirit scratch. And that is that if there's inflammation, And usually if there's 3 marks, there is going to be a little 4th mark. And usually if there's information, that is usually a physical mark, either done by yourself or by human spirit. And if there's 3 razor claw marks, like if you took a razor blade and you cut yourself 3 times, that's what a demonic scratch would look like. People don't realize this because it's misconcepted. People don't talk about these differences. So people jump to the conclusion of the scratches, but a scratch can mean communication. A spirit reaches out to you and creates an impression on your body in the form of scratches or information because it touched you, and just how it appears to our physical skin. Growling, that could be a little bit more interesting to deal with, but it could be somebody trying to mess with you. If we technically call these things intelligent spirits, and of course there's residual and there's poltergeist and all these different classifications, but if we're dealing with the human spirit that is, of course, intelligent, they intelligently can haunt us and mess with us and growl and do these things to kind of have fun. And, right. We call these things intelligent, and people tend to forget that. So I think that's why people jump to the conclusion that it's evil, because we misconcept, or it's people's opinions or faith, and you can't deconstruct that. That's their opinion, and they have every right to believe that. And for them, they're going to be a lot safer ever encountering something like that, because you're not attempting communication. Of course, with Keith, he helps people, so he's going to deal with it. But if he wasn't in that realm of things and he didn't communicate to spirits, there would not be ever a chance of him probably dealing with a demonic entity, unless it was somehow karma or somehow fate or sin or something, or even like in my sense. So it's possible, but yeah, people jump to the conclusions. A lot of the cases I deal with is basically dissecting it and telling them it's not demonic. But in that same way of things, that's when you lose people too, because people sometimes want to hear it is demonic. And that's where, of course, I'm not a psychologist or have a PhD or a master's degree or a bachelor's degree or associate's degree in psychology. I've worked with doctors, and I know doctors in psychology, and I highly respect the field, and I love it. It's one of my loves. I plan to be going back to school and going to school for psychology, because it's a love of mine. I think it really will help with what I do. I think having physical representation of something that is respected will help, because that's what people tend to forget in this field is there are ways to go the proper way. There are things we can do to make it a little bit more of less of a pseudoscience field, and that's my steps. So, but there's a lot of people that have psychological issues, and when you come across those people, of course, it is your due diligence to get them help, or at least give them the guidance to get help. And that's also what we do. Unfortunately, it's not what demonology is about. But of course, in the way of evil, some people want it, or some people need the attention, and that's the thing they cling on.
Well, I had told that person who had asked that question, I felt that a lot of it was Hollywood. They just expect that it's going to be that. It's going to be demonic because, well, they've watched this show or they've seen that movie, so they're pretty sure it's demonic. It's sad that sometimes that the public's only source of information are those shows that are made strictly for entertainment.
Yeah, definitely. Hollywood has, and of course television. I of course watch Unsolved Mysteries, Tales of the Crypt, and Accounts of the Fourth Kind, and all these different kinds of movies dealt with the paranormal in some format. And when Ghost Hunters came out, I live in Rhode Island. I was in Rhode Island at that point too, and it was a big thing back then. So when it was in my neighborhood, I dabbled in it, as a hobby, but I really got into it full swing at 14, 15 years old, basically when that show came out. I just fell in love because it really was a need, it was around, but I kind of knew the Harry Prices and the Hans Holzers, but it kind of lit around on the map, but it also brought a deeper love for it because Harry Price and Hans Holzer, even though Hans Holzer did somewhat of a similar approach, and Harry Price, of course, used like baby powder and bells and stuff like that.
Correct.
They did a different approach, in some format where they were trying to disprove and debunk and whichever, and it was interesting. So, the TV shows does its justice where it's brought it to more of the comfortability of people coming out with their stories, but in that same concept, it also brings the chance of people's false stories coming out, or the needs for some things. And of course, the Hollywood, people want to blame Hollywood, but then we have to take out of reality that it's not reality. And even though it's based on true stories, I think we get too lost in that it's in front of our eyes, but we tend to forget it's Hollywood. And I don't like to blame it. Some people do, but I can't necessarily. I think it's sometimes our own misconceptions, but it's also some people's opinions and faith. And sometimes you have to break their opinion to escape them from that, and sometimes you can't.
Right.
So Hollywood, it's like it goes back to and with the non-Hollywood, there's so many debates, with like violence in movies. It causes violent people. So I think it's in that same area of debate what the causes are. But I think it has done positives, but of course anything has its negatives. Anything in life it has its double-edged sword.
Agreed. I mean, we've gotten some great pieces of equipment and what different types of equipment you yourself may want to use from those shows, and some great investigating techniques like the baby powder and stuff people wouldn't normally think about. So yes, I agree with you that there has been some really good things that have come out of them. But then again, I think it also puts an impression in people's heads that they have to learn to take it for what it is. It is entertainment, but there is some truth to it. And one of the things I do say to a lot of people are, the people that are on there, they are good ghost hunters. They're good investigators. They're just doing what they can to make it in Hollywood. And, you can't produce a ghost every show for every season unless you have a little Hollywood help sometimes. So it's keep in mind, they were at once very, very good investigators and still are, but they are doing a show. So.
Yeah, I feel you. I know people that do the television shows, and I should say I know mostly everybody that does the television shows. I've become friends with a lot of people, especially, of course, meeting you through conferences. And I respect a lot of those people. I respect all those people.
I do too.
But it's not something I'll ever do. Of course, I had my 5 seconds. Most people don't know of it. But, in that same token of it, it's just not my thing. I've worked in the backgrounds of many things, but it's not my thing. I believe what I do can't be emulated on television. I think, the documentary aspect of it, where some knowledge of it is good because people need to realize that it is possible. Evil does exist in this capability, and I do believe that 100%. So I think that some knowledge of it is great. But there are certain things like exorcisms over people, solemn rite of exorcism, that should not be perpetrated on television. It's a personal thing. It's like putting somebody's kind of sit down there with their therapist. Yeah, you can emulate it in like Law and Order and NCIS, and you can emulate it on the format of of a movie, but when it's like real people, I just don't like, even if people are all right with it, it's just not something I can swallow the pill and say I was all right with it. So it's just not something I attempt to do, but I respect everybody that does it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, very much so. So if somebody is having trouble within their home or with themselves or with their business, and they truly feel that it's not just a spirit, so they don't want to just call their town or their neighborhood's ghost hunters, what is the first step that they should take? What should they look for first?
What, for a demonic case or for
a demonic case? What is it that people? What is something that helps you to discern between demonic and just a really nasty spirit?
Well, that's the hardest thing. I worked on cases for years, months, weeks. Like I said, I only dealt with, in my believability, 5 to 7 cases, and I 5 emphatic that I can stand by. 3 of those were possession of a transient state. And 2 of them I still question to this day. I've been saying that for the past few years, because once in a while I go back to the case file, look at the documentation, some of the audio that I have, the videos. I feel like the person was afflicted with something, but for me to say it was demonic's very tough. Of course, in the 3 cases of possession, there was a psychologist involved in every single one of those cases, or a specialist in the mental health field in some capacity. So that was documented in that format. But
okay.
If I had to say in 5 of those cases, and even those 2 other cases, and that's why I really want to talk about them in some way. That's why I say them in a numerical value, because every single of those cases I felt a very overwhelming feeling, and of course, I have the ability to discern. I think that's one of my gifts. I believe that I can tell a good person from a bad person, and I can tell if somebody's lying to me. And I just have a gut feeling. People call it empathy, being an empath, or clairvoyant, clairsentient. I believe over time my body has become accustomed to understanding the differences of the atmosphere, the environment that I'm in. I experienced negative work environments. I could go from my house being positive, or even my house being negative at one point in my life, and go somewhere positive, and feeling the difference within myself and the stress levels and my anxiety. So. Mm-hmm. I think my body has come accustomed to that. And of course, dealing with negative haunts and demonic cases, the severity of the feelings, you can feel that negativity. And, I don't believe I'm psychic, a medium, or clairsentient, clairaudient. I believe that in those 5 cases, anybody that was involved felt it. They felt that immense feeling, and I feel like anytime you're in a demonic case, regardless of whoever you are, once you step onto that property, or within that property, or within the premise of the person that is being afflicted at that time, you will feel it. It is sick. It is a sickening feeling. It feels like, and I did martial arts for a long time in my life. I dabbled in many martial arts, and I've been kicked in the chest, punched in the solar plex, and I felt like I was getting punched over and over again in the solar plex. And I just felt sick. The chemical reaction that many of us don't know when it comes into that format is called the fight or flight. We all have that. It's a chemical reaction in our brain. And, your body and everything about you is telling you, get the hell out of that house, get out of there. But of course, because I'm stubborn and I do this crazy crap, I tell myself I have to stay, because if I run, who's going to help this family? Who's going to help them overcome? Who's going to have them rekindle their faith and start believing in their high power again? So I take over that and I fight my body, and my body reacts in different ways. You know, I've of course puked after cases. You know, I'm drained so badly, and I think people experience that, of course, but it's so immense. And anytime I've dealt with a demonic case in those few numbers of times, I felt that, and so did everybody else involved. And I've only experienced that in those kind of cases. So that's how I necessarily help apply to what I'm dealing with. But there's so many steps, there's so many boxes you have to check. If somebody is claiming possession, you have to get physicians and psychologists or therapists involved, as long as they agree. If they really want help, they will agree. But you have to document. There's so much things, especially being involved with the United States Catholic Church, or even my Catholic brethren who do this. Kind of work. You know, we have our channels we have to go through. You know, I work with Bishop James Long, and he's an exorcist. I'm not. You know, he would be going into the case. You know, it's my job, if I do work a case and it goes through the food chain, it is my job to assess the case as much as I can, or somebody like Rich Valdez to assess it, because he's a demonologist for the United States Catholic Church. You know, so it is his ability to assess it and receive all the documentation and then give it to the Council of Bishops. So there's a process, a step. So there's so much that goes on in my end. But if I personally had to tell you, that is one of the biggest things that I go by, is you'll feel it. The demonic entity might not necessarily come out forth and start playing theatrical games, because most demonic entities won't. But if it's truly there, you will feel it. It's sickening.
Okay. I believe you said been there twice, so I do understand. Well, you know what, James? Let's take a 10-minute break, and when we come back, I have some more questions for you, sir.
Okay, definitely.
All right. You are listening to Illuminating the Paranormal on ParaX with our guest, James Annitto, and we will be right back.
Your source for everything paranormal. ParaX.
I found it at last! Marla's Sacred Cauldron. This is the legendary artifact that has been whispered about in hushed tones for hundreds of years, and now it's mine! All
mine! Who dares defile the sanctity of my castle walls? Step away from the cauldron, you impertinent, muddy-mettled maltworm.
Never! I've spent half my lifetime trying to discover your age-old secret of stirring the cauldron.
Oh, for Merlin's sake, that's no deep, dark secret. Just tune into the ParaX Radio Network Thursday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern for more cauldron stirring than you can shake a wand at.
Oh, well, in that case, I guess I don't need to take up any more of your time, so I guess I'll be going.
Not just yet. We've got a little unfinished business to take care of.
That's Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Para X Radio Network.
Hey, this is Lee.
And this is Michelle.
And this is Dustin from the Dead Zone.
Your source for everything paranormal, Para X.
And welcome back, everyone, to Illuminating the Paranormal. My name is Tina Marie, and my guest tonight is James Annitto. And James, thank you. You are just giving us lots and lots of really great information here. I got lots of people in the chat room that are just thoroughly enjoying everything that you're saying, and they're getting some of the information that they were looking for. So really liking that. But let me ask you this. Is there a case that you can share with us?
Well, I can go into a few specific details of what I experienced on a few different cases dealing with transient possession, one of the stages of a demonic haunting. I can give you whereabouts of location. A few of these cases were in Massachusetts and one was in New York. But any details beyond that, I can definitely not give due to confidentiality, and it's not my due diligence to give out that information. But within these cases, one of these cases, I was dealing with a young gentleman. I was dealing with a group that was helping me. And throughout the stages of this interview and investigation, and of course, there had been prior investigations and prior cleansing of this home. There had been multiple respectable people that had dealt and experienced the affliction within this person and experienced the haunting that was going on within the home or within the place. And basically, I was called in after so many people involved, and what I experienced that night was something that was mind-blowing. Some of the things that occurred, of course, we think of the movie The Exorcist that came out in the 1970s. One of the first key defining moments of possession in Hollywood, and like we were just talking about Hollywood before, but it was one of the key defining points of possession, and of course the rite of exorcism, and of course based off a book based on a real true story, and was very horrendous. And of course the person that dealt with exorcism survived, and there's many different things written on it. Of course our good friend Christopher St. Booth wrote a book about it, has the journal and applied it to a book, and so there's so much on it. But yeah, possession is tough, and you think, well, of course, what you see in Hollywood is what you would expect. You expect the pea soup, the head spinning, as scary as that is. And of course, even though I was not alive when Exorcist first came out, I did watch it when I was young, and it did, scare the EBGBs out of me. Of course, so the idea of Reagan getting possessed, playing with the Ouija board, and all these things, and of course the Catholic Church and exorcisms. You expect this, especially really never dealing with possession before. And this person, what we would call transient possession. So for people that are listening, there are stages to a demonic haunting. Usually starts off with infestation, goes oppression. There can be obsession, or it can go to obsession. There's possession, and possession can be characterized in two different formats. Transient possession. Transient possession is, even though the oppression worked and that person was oppressed and broke down that person's free will, where allowed in some way, some applicable way for the entity to be welcomed in. Could have been invitation in some format. I give up some capability, but so the transient possession is where the person still has some sort of capability of their free will, and the entity comes in and out in a transient way, where the person can battle subconsciously to come back, because there can only be one host in a time at a body. Per speculation in quantum physics and all these different ideologies of reference to spirit and how energy works. So transient possession is that, and then the other stage is perfect possession, where the person's free will is fully demoralized. The person is nobody, and the demonic entity has full reign of the body. But in perfect possession, the body starts deteriorating rapidly, because think about negativity. What negativity does to our bodies. It causes stress, causes anxiety, and stress can cause cancer. So just imagine this immense negative force that's never had a physical body maintaining into your body, and how fast and deteriorating your body will start getting cancer and other diseases, where your eventual host body will die, and of course that person's soul will no longer have a body, and of course that gets into that concept. But transient possession is what I dealt with in all three cases. And the things that I experienced with these individuals, and of course this one person, which was the first time, was disfigurement of the face. The face triangulated, so the cheekbones actually started pinpointing, and triangular format. The whole face deconstructed in a way. It was weird, very scary. The person had heightened ability of Latin and other languages, and this person was in their mid-20s. So unless they were a genius and could easily learn languages or knew these languages beforehand, such as Latin, spoke it pretty fluently. And I say Latin prayers, and I can't even speak it fluently. So. This person was doing these things, and of course, the biggest thing, of course, beside the triangulation, of course, eyes went fully black, which is not a natural occurrence. Of course, unless you dilate your eyes, and I've never seen a person's eyes go fully black from dilation or anything like that. Or in any capability, unless they were aware and somehow put those things in their eyes where you can what are they called? I forget what they're called. The
contacts?
Yeah, the contacts, like the graphic contacts and stuff like that. So unless somebody quickly did that when you weren't looking, the eyes went black. But the biggest thing is I had two big men there. One was a former bouncer, and one was just a very big dude, and a shaman. And this guy wasn't that big. But, he had a muscular build to him, but these guys were more than 300 pounds each. And the craziest thing that happened to me, and I carry these things with me in my rosaries that were specially made. And I was wearing my rosaries, and basically this person went through a transient state and went from their personality to this demonic personality. And basically bum rushed me. He threw a table at me with all my stuff on it, and basically these two big gentlemen bum rushed this person under transient possession and pinned this guy to a wall, because he was going to attack me, and tried to attack me, of course, with this table that barely missed me. And when they bum rushed him, of course, that fight or flight instinct kicks in again. But, of course, there's some funny aspect to this story that I still remember. Of course, the table half discombobulated near this guy as well. It wasn't half, and some capability. And so I grab everything to start doing a deliverance. Of course, I'm not an exorcist. I was not there to perform anything over this gentleman. I was only there to assess and maybe say prayers over to help to dissimulate some activity. But I was not an exorcist. I was not there to do an exorcism. And so, of course, my fight or flight kicks in, and my fight is I will start saying deliverance to de-escalate the situation. And of course, within this is, of course, we hear about superhuman strength. Of course, it wasn't Superman power strength. People did not go flying. But one of the craziest things is like I said, I was wearing these rosaries, and these 300-pound plus guys are holding this gentleman down. And he is able to you hear this dislocation of his shoulder. He dislocates his shoulder, gets out of him, grabs me, holds on to my collar and my rosaries. I'm able to break free, but my rosaries break. They fly everywhere. And eventually, I of course, within this, I finished my deliverance. And this whole time, I have a crucifix, my skull and bones crucifix that I've had all my life. Basically, it was above my even though I wasn't religious when I was a kid, it was above my bed when I was a kid. And so I had this thing. So I have the skull and bone crucifix to this person's head, saying prayers, Captain Morgan on this table, like my legs on the table, my legs on the ground, and I'm saying prayers. And of course, I finished the deliverance, and thankfully it works, where this person de-escalates and the person's free will is able to get back. And of course, one of the things that if sometimes a deliverance, sometimes so like I said, a transient work. So you can have that person's soul come back into their body. The free will takes precedence. But of course, there's going to be some expulsion some way. So of course, he did vomit. And there was tears coming out of his eyes, and and of course he felt the environment changed as well. Unfortunately, that did not work, and this person dealt with it afterwards. And I was not, due to other reasons, which I will not get into, was not able to help him any further. But that was one of the cases. So, but in a lot of those cases, the eyes. They go black, or some precognition, or some ability to understand religious objects. I think one of the scariest things from one of my cases was I talk about this quite often, but it still kind of wills me to my bone, is that I had a nightmare about a family I was dealing with through email, and I had never physically met these people. I'd never physically seen their house, never physically seen any of their appearances, never got pictures of them. We were in email state. I did not feel any need to get pictures of them. They never sent me anything, scratches, so where there was a face applicable. They never showed me pictures of their house. So I had this nightmare where I was going to help this family, and I got to this house. I seen the family, and I killed every single one of them. The scary thing is, if you take what I said before that, is when I got to the house was the same, and every single family member was to what they looked like in my nightmare. Oh. And I had never seen these people in my life. It took my breath away. And of course, these people, I did not kill anybody that day, but it really was something that really kind of brought me not to the edge, but really made me realize this is not something to mess with, because like I said, I'd never ever physically seen these people. I'd never seen their house, and I had a nightmare, and everything was applicable. Everything was a spinning image to my nightmare, beside, of course, the outcome.
So do you think it was whatever was there was...
It was trying to scare me away. It was trying to scare me away. Yeah, definitely. These are tactics, they don't want the family to be helped. They want this family to be molested. And they don't want the intercession. They don't want the help. So, of course, they're going to do anything in their power. And there are things that can happen. And there's people that have had physical things that happen at their house. I've had some retaliation in some format. I don't necessarily believe it's from demonic entity. I've had some activity occur before and after a couple cases. But this is the first time I believe I dealt with the demonic case, and I had definitely a nightmare from it. So, yeah, I definitely think it was influence to stay away. of course, like I said, I'm a moron, and my fight or flight does not work, and my flight is not a thing. So I still went, and I'm glad the resolution was not me killing the family. And that's all I can be thankful for. But no, it was very eye opening. But yeah, there's a few things that happened to me on a few of my cases. I hate to be scarce, but like I said, I don't want to give too much details on people's afflictions.
No, understood. Not a problem. I do have a couple questions from the chat room. One, Sherry is asking, do you have any upcoming paranormal conferences to your knowledge with Tim? Is it Miley? It's Miley, right?
Tim Miley, yeah.
Yeah. I know we have SilCon together, but I don't know if you have any others. She wanted to know if you had seen him lately or if you have anything upcoming with him.
I talked to Tim probably a few weeks ago, maybe when this pandemic started, to be honest with you. I'm still working during the day, and I have a son, so I haven't talked to him in a while, but I have nothing coming up with him. I wish I do. I love Tim very, very much so. I've known him for probably 10 years as well, and he's like a brother to me. But no, I have nothing coming up. I do believe he will be at SilCon at this point in time, but I have not heard from him in quite a few weeks.
Okay.
I'm off Facebook, so I haven't been really keeping in touch with people. I took a little sabbatical from social media because, so that is also probably another reason why I haven't heard from him.
Smart move. We are down to just a few more minutes, but I just wanted to ask, because there's another question. They asked, what do you suggest someone do for an unwanted attachment? Not demonic, an attachment.
Well, I truly think anything of these things require faith, but I think one of the biggest important things is mind over matter. And I think attachments and demonic entities can only molest us and truly affect us if we allow them to affect us. And to be honest, every time there's been a resolution is because of this person's faith overcoming and themselves overcoming the situation. So I feel like they can only affect us and afflict us if we allow them and we succumb to them molesting us. If we overpower them in our faith and overpower them over mind over matter, and we tell them they can't affect us, and we still trench forward through the mud, I think that's what's important. So if you're dealing with the attachment, do your best to be positive. Even at the hardest times, you always got to remember at the end of the tunnel there's still a light. So you have to go sometimes through that tunnel to get to the light, and it'll be tough. But life isn't easy. So definitely remember, your faith is powerful, and you can do anything you put your mind to, I do believe, and that's also overcoming something like that.
Agreed, very much so. When you were saying about how you felt that whatever was possessing or within that home gave you that sort of nightmare, I've had something similar, but it was an attachment of something that a mom had called me. She said, help. She goes, my daughter's acting weird. She goes, mom could see, mom had ability. She goes, I can literally see it. It looks like a creature that is attached to her. She goes, she's not acting like herself. Every once in a while she'll come through and she's begging for help. This woman lives about a mile from my house. Grabbed my gear, went up there. Not that I felt that it was possession, but it was something that attached to the girl. Brought my kit. Now, I know this woman. I know her daughter. I've known them for years. And I'm driving up to their house. I know right after this red light that it's like 3 driveways, and I turned. I went past their house 3 times because their driveway was no longer visible. I couldn't see the driveway. Yeah, so I understand what you're talking about. It's weird. So I did finally get down there, and I did have like blessed salt and holy water from Bishop Ray, that kind of stuff, and that's lots of prayer, and that stuff did work. So it whatever the thing was, it did kind of hang around outside after we got it unattached from her. We did a lot of cleansing of the home and a lot of different stuff. So, yeah, they can mess with you guys.
It's all positive vibration. I tell people to open their windows, let the sun in. Positivity can outweigh the negativity as long as you put it out.
Agreed. Well, I wanted to say thank you so very, very much for being on my show. And I have like a list of about 20 more questions. So will you come back and be on my show again?
I definitely would love to. I'm sorry. I like to go really in depth with the questions.
No.
If I could get a shameless plug in quickly.
Please. Yes.
Well, I was talking about Carl John. I almost said his name wrong. He's going to kill me tomorrow. I was talking about Carl Johnson earlier. So when, of course, this pandemic is over and everything gets back to normal, when events get started going, Carl Johnson and I are part of a research unit together called Duo Demonology, where we are, of course, going to be at Silicon and many other, of course, rescheduled events and events that are still scheduled to be when they are. And we are doing a lecture series on the topic of demonology and, of course, other aspects of the paranormal as well. And we have a combined total experience of about 60 years, and Carl's been doing this for a long time. So, you can find us on Facebook, Duo Demonology, DuoDaemonoliogie. And even though I'm not Facebook, Elise, who our manager is and co-partner with Panorama Paranormal with Carl, manages our page and manages us. If you reach out to us, she can, of course, answer any questions with Duo Demonology, or you can reach out to me personally. I give my phone number out because I'm crazy. It's 401-808-7416. So if you need to reach me, if you have any issues, please do so.
Awesome. So yes, people, if you get the chance to come to one of the Paracons and James is there, check out the program, the Dual Demonology. I know I've heard James speak several different times, and it is always very, very interesting, extremely informative. And if you're listening to the show, I'm sure quite a few of you just got quite a bit even tonight. So that is great. Thank you so very much. I do appreciate that. Just to let everyone know, if you are looking for me online, you can find me on Facebook at Illuminating the Paranormal. If you want, I have 3 other businesses on there. Nature's Earthware, WARE, Heirloom Haberdashery, that's the steampunk stuff, and 3 Sisters Smudging, where we can create you custom smudges. So you guys can always check me out there. I have some wonderful, great guests coming up over the next few weeks. In fact, next week will be somebody I know. James, I know you've seen him before. Tim Woolworth will be my guest next week. Let's see, Scotty Rourke's coming up on the 19th of May. Bill and Chris Reap will be at the end of May. And let's see, boy, I can just keep going here. I got Marie and Jay Yates that have been on TV on some of the different ghost hunting shows. They're coming beginning of June. Christopher Sutton, love the man. He is going to be my shaman teacher, so cannot wait to have him there. And I'm also going to have Mary Marshall, and she is just getting over being unwell, and she's coming back. And at the end of June, I've got Darcy McGrath. So lots of great people coming up, guys. And James, really quick, you got 1 minute. Tell me again, Dual Demonology, where can they find it online?
On Facebook, Duo Demonology, or you can reach out to me personally, or even go through my Facebook or through my website, jamesannitto.com, and there would be multiple ways of finding Duo Demonology.
Awesome. You guys need to check that out if you guys get the chance to. Love all of you. Stay safe, wash your hands, and I will catch up with you guys next week with my guest, Tim Woolworth. You guys have a really great evening. Bye.